Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready?
All right, welcome back to another edition of the podcast. Today we have an exciting special guest. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Brad Feinberg, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well, can't complain.
There you go. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the fitness industry and
Sure,
celebrity training?
sure, absolutely. I've been in the industry for almost 2 decades now, and I work with I call them high profile individuals, but really anyone who is very busy, is handling a lot in their life, extremely stressed out, and they're looking to maximize their performance in life. And that could be very broad, could also be very specific, or certain things are really trying to improve. But like you said, I've worked with celebrities, entertainers, business leaders, high performing sales individuals, individuals, and also chronically ill, or individuals who may be suffering from some form of autoimmune disease or disorder. Um, so, and really what I do is provide coaching and programming across certain aspects to really have them take control of their life again, to have them get the health and body and life that they've always wanted.
Well, that's amazing. It's always good to hear that, people like yourself are out there trying to make one person better, at a time. And the reach across that is just amazing.
Yeah, it's, I would say I figured out I was fortunate to figure out very early on in life that this was my passion in really wanting to help someone in that way. But yeah, I very much believe this is why I was put on this planet.
So, as far as you getting into the fitness industry, was there anybody that that inspired you, you looked up to kind of give you that drive, the motivation to try to learn how to get into shape and then kind of stay there?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like every guy's answer is Arnold Schwarzenegger. But he was, for me, especially going through college. But before that, in all honesty, it wasn't someone, it was more something. And at 5 years old, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So I had to learn very early on how to take care of myself. But I also found out how much being healthy and eating right and exercise can impact all of that. So that was my real motivation, to get me into that. And then as I got older, I started, getting into bodybuilding, and, looked up a lot to, what Mike Mensa, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Tom Platz, all those guys, So it was very much like the 80s, 90s bodybuilding era is what I loved.
And, I think it's really a testament to hear that, even though you had something like type 2 diabetes, at a young age, that you had the wherewithal and the drive to want to learn how to be healthy and how to be, in better shape, and how that can impact the diabetes as well.
Yeah. And did I say type 2 or type 1? Because I was diagnosed with type 1.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Um,
I misunderstood.
all good. No, yeah. Because the reason I say is because there is a significant difference, but whether it's one or two, they're both can be very much be impacted the same way with eating right and exercise. But yeah, as a kid, the only time I really kind of felt normal was when I was working out or exercising or playing sports. But other than that, I always felt like there was something wrong with me. I was always like, at least in my head, like the odd one out. So playing sports just it had me feel like I was a normal kid.
Yeah, and I've learned that being active and staying moving in some capacity, whether it be walking, exercising, running, playing sports and stuff like that, when something's in motion, it's easier to sustain that, so to speak. And the I've learned that over my course of my weight loss journey that I've had thus far, that just the little things and repetition for that, along with the food nutrition aspect, can do wonders.
Yeah, it really can. Uh, Not to say that you said this, but I feel like a common misbelief is that it takes, like hundreds of thousands of dollars and all this time investment and all these different intricate programs to be at your top physical health. And I mean, yes, you can do all that, but it really only takes consistent effort, and it doesn't need to require this elaborate program or like hundreds and thousands of supplements or this or that. Again, you can do that and it can be effective, but it's for most people it just takes a little bit of effort in the right direction and just do it every single day for the rest of your life. So
Yeah, repetition is key in getting into a certain schedule of, eating healthy and trying to stay as active as you possibly can. Those things help. A lot of people think that you have to go lift weights. And I mean, sure, you can do that. Like you said, you can do those things. But I know for me, just general walking and watching what I eat and watching the portion sizes, I mean, that was really key for me.
yeah, I mean that is the recipe to practice like your foundational health. Watching what you eat, like walking is great for like your general activity. And I think what a lot of people forget is that if you if you're staying active, it can add up throughout the day. Where, let's say where I see a lot where some people kind of fall in the trap of is maybe they will work out 45 minutes to an hour, which is fantastic. But then they're sedentary for the rest of the day. And, you know, the that will actually like it'll neutralize itself when it comes to certain standpoints, like for instance um with maintaining that fat loss, just working out that 45 minutes to 60 minutes is not going to be enough if you're sitting for the rest of the 10 to 12 hours of the day, in your day. So, being active is can add in a lot more than I think what a lot of people realize, and how impactful it can be to general health, general activity, sustain, like really help maintaining that fat loss if that's, if that's your goal.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm curious to see your side of what different types of nutrition are best, just because I know, obviously with different people react to different things. But, for the most part, for me, yeah, I, of course, didn't cut out the vegetables and things like that. I just lowered the portions. But if I ate a little bit more protein, it kept me full and I wasn't hungry as much.
Yep. And in all honesty, that like what you just said right there is the are the key components to any meal plan. It's make sure you're hitting your protein and watch your portion sizes. Like with the thousands of people that I've coached, that is always the same in every single nutritional aspect. Now, what I will say is that technically any nutritional plan or meal plan can work. It can, but it depends on what your goals are. It depends on what your body's like or your gut health. So what I mean by that is if we want to burn body fat, we have to be in a deficit. We have to. And how do we do that? We watch our portion sizes. We move a little bit more. And the content of what you're eating could really kind of be what you want in the sense of well-balanced food, good sources of protein, appropriate amounts of fats, appropriate amount of carbohydrates. And if that last little bit, you want it to be something, let's call quote unquote naughty, but you're still in that caloric deficit, you're still eating healthy foods, you're going to get to where you want to be. I see a lot of people falling victim to it has to be a one-way road. And that is the key to potentially not getting what you want inside of this, or, being so restrictive that if I tell you to not think of a pink elephant, what's the first thing you're going to do? So what people don't realize is that emotions are a thing. And if we get stressed out, if we starve ourselves too much, if, we do X, Y, and Z, if our gut health is out of control, well, we have hormones that are going to react and impact how we feel. So really, if we make sure our caloric amount is matching our goal, if we are eating enough protein to maintain, recover, and keep us full, satisfied, if we are eating the right types of food to make sure our gut health is as optimal as possible, well, then you're going to get the body, you're going to get the change that you want. And that can be, maybe one day you do a little bit more fat and less carbs, and maybe another day you do more carbs and less fat. Like, it doesn't have to be such this rigid protocol. It can be if you want, but that's my point with this, is that there's so many different ways to go about doing it. But if we have these key foundational components, like I just mentioned, you can kind of fill in the blanks of what you want. Make sure you're healthy, make sure you're getting your micronutrients, your vitamins and minerals, and you'll get there. It's just time, consistency, doing it year after year after year after year. So that's what I see in the world of nutrition.
Excellent. So I am kind of curious, how did you get into training celebrities?
So I moved out to Vegas, where I'm at now. Gosh, it's almost 8 years now, 7, 8 years ago. I originally grew up in Philadelphia. I was there for 27 years. And long story short, my what I wanted to do brought me out to Las Vegas. And in Vegas, you just meet a different type of crowd. You meet those higher profile individuals, and just how life intended it. I met with Dan Reynolds from Imagine Dragons, and I started coaching him. And it was funny, at the time, I didn't know who he was. I knew what he sounded like. I knew his band. I knew his music, but I didn't know what he looked like. And then after a couple training sessions, I asked him, like, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm a musician." I said, "Oh, that's cool. Like, what instrument do you play?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm a lead singer." I was like, "Oh, what is local band?" And he's like, "Imagine Dragons." And I just was like, "I'm sorry, I had no idea." But I think he really appreciated that and loved that, because the relationship that him and I had and still have is of now, like, he's my brother, he's my best friend. And I treated him like a normal human being, but I pushed him and supported him to really get him to an aspect to where he is now inside of health and fitness, where he, can really take control of his body, because he also has two autoimmune diseases, and that,
Oh, wow.
yeah, ankylosing spondylitis and ulcerative colitis, and they both went into remission with me working with him. And so, long story short, my success with him opened the window to that world. And so that is really how I got into it. And then from there, I worked with Steve Aoki for a couple months. I've worked with Benson Boone, who he's rising up very well. He came out of American Idol. I worked with him during his most recent tour. I'm going to be working with him again on his next tour coming up. I worked with Susie Abramite, who was in Jessica Jones. She just released a couple new movies. She was in The Purge. So I still count this, but I worked out with Diplo for a day. So it's I've met some amazing, amazing people because of this. And what's really cool when you work with someone who's successful like that, there's a lot of similar characteristics. And I bring this up because I feel like people that would be listening to this would want to know, like, oh, how can I do that? How can I achieve, well, at least I think, how can I become my own version of a superstar? And really what it is it's mindset. And for them, with health and fitness, they always made it a priority. It was never like, okay, work first, then working out. It was work and working out at the same time. They were of equal priority. And I hear a lot of people saying, oh, I'm too busy. I don't have enough time. And I call BS. These are some of the busiest people in the world that I've worked with. So it's like when someone's like, oh, I'm too busy, I'm like, I don't believe you at all. Like, stop lying to yourself. And that's where it's like with mindset for them, they just decide that it's going to get done, where someone else could let themselves slip and be like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Or it's, I have other things to take care of. And it's just like, what are you feeding? Energy wise, it's like, are you feeding that version of yourself that's going to let you get off track? Or are you going to feed the version of yourself that's going to hold yourself accountable and do what you say you're going to do? So I know I would have been on a tangent there, but I felt like it was appropriate.
No, that's fine. I mean, I agree with that because, there are, 24 hours in the day. And if you work a normal 9 to 5, you figure, it could be 8 to 10 hours and you still have several hours. Just take a half hour or 45 minutes or an hour out of your day.
Yeah, that's really not a lot of time. And what's crazy with that is that little amount of time makes probably one of the best impacts on your life that you could possibly make. Because to me, health and fitness is what has you become a warrior in life. Because let's be real, life can be brutal. Like, life can be rough. And if we look at, let's call it stress, general term stress, chemically and hormonally, there's things that happen when we get stressed out. We get into that fight or flight nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system. And if we are always stressed out, if we are always in that sympathetic nervous system, things start to change in the body because the body just wants to survive. And so this is where hormones can get out of place. And if we're not sleeping right, we're not recovering. And you mentioned mental health earlier. They don't teach you how to deal with anxiety or depression. Like, you finish high school or college, and then you get into the real world and you're like, well, this sucks. And so then out of your good intention, you try to go to the doctor and be like, I'm not feeling well. What's going on? And let's be real, at least in our culture these days, American healthcare ain't the best. And they're very, I'm not saying all doctors are like that. I've met some amazing doctors. I've worked with some amazing doctors, but majority, and it's the way our system is set up. They get paid very well off of prescriptions, writing out scripts. So what do? Here's your Adderall to focus more. Here's your, here's your opioid to relax, so it's like, that is some of the most addictive legal drugs out there that for prescriptions. So then you keep going down this emotional rabbit hole because you don't know how to deal with anxiety and depression. And then you get medication, which makes you addicted. And then next thing you know, to feed that addiction, whether it's drugs, alcohol, food, whatever it is, you get so deep in this hole, you're like, well, how did I get here? And next thing you know, you look down and you're like 30, 40 pounds heavier. Your heart health has gone out the window. You've aged an extra 30 years that you didn't need to. And health and fitness prevents all of that. It does. You look at the number one killer in the world right now. What is it? Heart disease, heart attack. Health and fitness prevents that. So my point is, it's like, to what you're saying, you literally spend 30, 40 minutes a day to add years onto your life to allow you to better handle all the BS that you're dealing in with life. Health and fitness improves. I bet you 95% of the depression and anxiety would be solved if people just started working out and eating right and sleeping. So,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know once I started just going to the gym and being active and doing a lot of cardio, I felt good afterwards.
yeah.
Even if I didn't
Yep.
want to go, I mean, I still felt great.
Yep. Well, your body, that's how you get free drugs. It's those feel-good hormones, oxytocin, dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin. Exercise maximizes all of those. And then there's little things we can do in the day, like let's say you have a really solid 15-minute morning routine, composed of different components that can really like kickstart your day. So you don't maybe need as much caffeine as most of our culture is drinking. And then throughout the day, maybe you're getting some sunlight, maybe do a little cold therapy. Your dopamine, your serotonin is maximum. Like, to me, it's like, I feel like every day I'm high, but it's because like I'm taking care of my body. And I fought addiction. I've gone through addiction. I've gone through alcohol and drugs. Like, I went through a divorce. So it's like, I know what high feels like. And to me, it's like how I am now with now really constructing my life in this way. It's like, I literally wake up excited. I literally wake up like so ecstatic with what I'm doing, and I feel high throughout the entire day because I'm doing these little things. I'm eating right, taking care of my body, so on and so forth. So it's like when someone tells me that they just don't have the time, or it's like, oh, I'm too tired to do this. I'm like, shut up. It's like, you don't know what's on the other side because you feel like crap all the time. And I get that's hard I get it. Like I said, I've been there. But what we always are responsible for or control of is our actions. And you can always take that first step, even like you said, even if it's just watching your portion sizes and going for a walk. For most people, that would literally change their lives.
Exactly. You see, I'm glad there are people like you out there that understand what it's like to be, not necessarily a celebrity, but to be in a normal
Yeah.
regimen in life, and not, because you have some fitness people that want to push this regimen and say you got to
Mm-hmm.
do this,
Yeah.
but it's always for me. I've always heard eat what you want, but just watch what you eat.
Yep. Yeah. It's like, that is the one of the most important things. It's just being aware. And like, there are days like I always take a day out of the week and I go and enjoy, I have a pretty, like what you would call like a bad food meal, but I watch my portion sizes. I adjust my food the rest of the day. It's about balance, trying to force, I know this is a pun, but force feed a particular way down someone's throat is going to cause um, friction, and they're not going to want to do it, because where I see a lot of issues is that let's say someone's lifestyle is right here, And if you try to start them here or here or here, and then you got to pull a 180, I'm sorry, but most people will not adhere to that because it's so drastically different. And if we understand it, it's like, this is where emotions come into play. Because it's like, if you're starting at a certain point, and I take some, yes, there has to be a little bit of change. Has to be. If we want to get better, we have to implement new behaviors and stop the old ones that are not getting there. So, but if you're here and we start you immediately here, the subconscious is like, hell no, because it's not in alignment with the consciousness. So we have to make these small changes. And people where I've seen, again, I'm never gonna like downplay another coach or program. I'm just talking about in general. I see a lot of times, like you said, you have to do it a certain way. And I'm like, I'm sorry. In my opinion, we have to meet you at where you're at and then change you from there. So, for you, it's like something that may be beneficial now. It's like, okay, you're doing your walking, you're eating right, great. Let's just add in one extra piece. Maybe you start lifting weights 2 days a week, something like that. Or maybe we start implementing something a little bit better with your bedtime routine. Let's just pick one. And just one or two things, and we just add it in there. But like you said, if we go to a coach and he's like, you got to do this, the brain can't function. Like, most people's brains can't function. I know mine can't. I take one thing at a time and something new to implement.
Yeah, and you're able to, in my mind, you're able to focus on it a lot better and
Oh yeah.
stay the course because it's not 15 different things. It's one, two, maybe three things.
Yep. Absolutely. And that's another thing where I see a lot of people, why they may not adhere to it is because they try to focus on so many things at once. When I start with a new client, I start with two things. Let's get you moving more. Let's get you eating better. That's it. And that takes around a month. And the reason I start with those is because those are some of the, as we know, the most impactful things on the body that can change the body. Then when that becomes normal, great. Let's look at your morning and bedtime routine. And we can add in maybe a couple supplements if it's appropriate based off of the blood work that we got in the beginning. Okay, that becomes normal. Great. Now let's maybe take a look at some mindset work, or but it's like it's in a layered process on how to get you there.
Yeah, exactly. Baby steps. Take one step at a time.
Have to. Yep.
So as far as people being able to find your programs, where can they find those programs to reach out to you?
Yep. So my two contact points, Instagram, like how you found me, at Brad Feinburg 88 on Instagram. I've been trying to grow TikTok and YouTube a little bit more, but that's a process. We'll worry about that later. But Instagram is like, that's where I do a lot of my business. If anyone reaches out to me on there, it's literally, it's all about the business. And then my website, thefeinbergmethod.com. And on there, I have, some client success stories. I have a video, like a typical landing page. I'm not going to, promote it that it's something special. It's a typical landing page. It just promotes myself. And anyone can click on the button to fill out an application and submit a time for a free consultation.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, listen, Brad, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy
Yep.
schedule to chat with me. It was a lot of fun, and hopefully we can do it again in the future.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, man.
Down, down.